Hi everyone, my name is Anand Subramanian. I'm an associate professor as well as head of the logistics and optimization group at the Universidade Federal da Paraíba in Brazil. And I'm here to do a short interview with Professor Soroush Saghafian from Harvard University about his latest book, Insight-Driven Problem Solving, Analytic Science to Improve the World. I had the honor of interviewing Soroush back in 2021 on the Subject to podcast, where we had a great conversation about his life and professional trajectory. I highly recommend checking out that episode, which is easily available on YouTube. Soroush, it's a pleasure to talk to you again. What motivated you to write this very interesting book?
Thank you. Thanks for having me again. In the book, I have this quote from George Orwell that says, "Writing a book is a horrible, exhausting struggle, like a long bout with some painful illness. One would never undertake such a thing if one were not driven on by some demon whom one can neither resist nor understand." What has been this demon for me? Well, the demon might have been my deep desire to encourage people to understand and make use of analytics to create essentially a better world. I wanted to create a guide that bridges this gap between technical methods and meaningful impact, a book that can empower essentially my readers, not just to work with data and run models, but to ask the right questions, interpret results wisely, and drive better decisions in public and private organizations. So I wrote an accessible book that would demonstrate how combining AI, data science, operations research, optimization, economics, and other fields has made the world that we live in a better place. I think that anyone's chance of becoming a successful entrepreneur, a highly demanded individual in our information economy, or someone who will be remembered for many generations for finding a solution to a lingering societal problem, like many of the heroes that I discuss in the book, will significantly increase if they read this book. And the reason for this is simple. I mean, every branch of science, I believe, has a few main big picture ideas that have been influential. And if someone learns those ideas in simple terms, they can make a significant impact. Analytic science is no different. So my goal has been to communicate those big picture ideas in an accessible manner in this book and showcase their applications to anyone who wants to understand and use analytics.
Right. After dissecting the topic inside out, how would you define analytics in simple terms?
That's a very good question. Thomas Kuhn was one of the most influential philosophers of science of the 20th century. And he reminded us of an important lesson from history. I think the lesson is that he said, history suggests that the road to a firm research consensus is extraordinarily arduous. Analytic science is no exception. For starters, there is no single definition of the science with full consensus among researchers or practitioners. Similarly, there is no clear boundary between what it includes and what it does not. But the good news is that that's also not that important to have a precise definition, so long as we know and we understand what we refer to by analytic science, what its goal is, and what type it includes. So in the book, I spent quite a few pages clarifying this, defining, analytic science. I also discussed that analytic science is often concerned with systematic process of using data when it's available, and a lot of times data is not available, involving assumptions about the system or environment that is being studied and making use of analytical computations and other methods, including modeling, optimization, operations research, to extract insights and identify patterns, and eventually the goal is to inform decision making. I also provide definitions from others, such as those by Dimitri Bertimos, for instance, that says, okay, analytics is the science of using data to build models that add value to decisions made by companies, institutions, and individuals. It is emerging as one of the fast-growing fields of our time. But again, the goal is not to provide a precise definition. What is more important to me is for people to learn the main ideas that have been impactful and see how we can use them moving forward to advance our lives further.
All right. You mentioned that the idea was to write an accessible book, right?
Yeah.
But specifically, what audience are you aiming to reach?
So essentially, anyone who is interested in learning about the main ideas in analytic science and how they can be used to generate actionable and impactful insights. This includes, entrepreneurs, practitioners working in private or public, organizations, students, or more broadly, any curious mind. I believe any curious mind will benefit from the book. As I say in the book, if you are interested in learning ways to make an impact on the world and are curious to know the range of possibilities that analytic science can offer to you, you have picked the right book. So welcome aboard.
Yes, yes. I read parts of it, and it's really engaging. I had fun learning about a lot of historical facts. I love that you know that, right? So it's a tremendous book, and it seems that you went through a lot to finish the book, as you mentioned in the beginning. How long did it take you to complete the journey?
Yeah. So it took me a long time. I mean, saying that I went through a lot is putting it mildly. It's been way more than that. So as you know, writing a sort of a semi-comprehensive book as a solo author is extremely difficult. It has taken me many, many years to put it together, the materials that needed for the book, revise it in several rounds, deeply think, rethink my thoughts a lot of times and discuss them with other thinkers and experts in the field. So I've had have to do this thoroughly, and a lot of times I had to thoroughly clear my mind during many years of writing this book. And I did this through, things like running, walking a lot of times, playing my favorite sport, tennis. And this has been especially the case on several occasions when I faced an endpoint, essentially. So as I discuss in the book, I feel that by providing a kind of, treatise on analytic science written in simple language, and by showcasing and discussing this superpower in creating a better world, I might have fulfilled my duty, which I sort of consider that as being part of my social contract that I have. So my hope is that through reading this book, I can put my readers on what I call shoulders of the giants, essentially, allowing them to see further, as Sir Isaac Newton once described in his letter to Robert Hooke, the English polymath. And so once my reader essentially starts seeing further, I believe they might find it much easier to improve the world for their fellow Homo sapiens, in which case, again, I feel like my social contract would be fulfilled.
And which topics did you find most difficult to write about?
Yeah, that's also another good question. So, people with technical skills have developed the science of analytics over the years. So discussing its main ideas in an accessible manner is not easy because, again, people with really technical skills have developed those ideas. But how do you describe, for instance, how LLMs work and how they learn from data in simple terms? How do you describe advances in, for instance, sequential decision making and dynamic programming that have resulted in better ways of treating diseases, or how Google Maps work, essentially, which a large percentage of users use it daily. And how do you describe that Google Maps is essentially based on some algorithms that were initially developed to solve problems like the traveling salesman problem? So I think overall, a lot of these topics have been developed by people with technical skills, but the main ideas behind them are simple, and describing them can have a large impact, which is what I try to do in the book.
Got it. You know, this is a vast landscape, right? When you talk about analytics, it's just so many subjects. And if you take each of them individually, it can be quite complex, a lot of technical aspects to address. And to put that, to frame that in a simple way, it's extremely challenging. And I don't want to congratulate you for that. It's been really a great accomplishment of yours. And did writing this book change your own perspective on analytics?
Yeah, so writing is a lot about thinking, and so you need to think deeply before you can write meaningfully and in an engaging way. So the exercise of writing for me, allows you to achieve that. It helps you to reconsider things that you might be unconsciously biased about, and then, of course, there are things that you might misunderstand or lack the clarity that you need. So this is especially true when you want to convey big picture ideas in simple terms. So one example, for instance, for me is like how easy it is to make mistakes in analytics. And so in several places in the book, I discuss examples where even trained and brilliant brains in analytics make mistakes. Then there are various misconceptions about analytics, especially in fields like AI and machine learning, which when writing the book, I realized there are unfortunately more widespread than I thought. So this became clear through writing the book for me.
Right. It's also a bit of damage control in a way.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Yeah. So last time we spoke, Soroush, it became clear that you were a profound admirer of the legendary John von Neumann. I must admit, I was expecting him to be a recurring figure in your book, and I was glad to see that confirmed.
Yeah.
Would you say he's the ultimate analytics scientist?
So there are many heroes that I describe in the book. I describe their work, and as I described in the book, analytics science has been built based on a scaffolding practice where a scientist, a scholar, or practitioner has essentially stood on the shoulders of those who became before them and added something new. So if you think, for example, about the current state of large language models and how they became a reality, you realize that it's been, due to work of many generations of big thinkers. But without them, we wouldn't have LLMs today. But as you say, John von Neumann has been my own personal hero. I call him in the book the greatest analytics scientist that ever lived. And anyone who reads the book will know why and will understand why I have such a high respect for him.
Yeah, he's an incredible figure. The range of contributions is just mind-boggling.
It is, yeah.
And I tend to agree with you in your affirmation. Is there any particular reasoning behind the order of the chapters? Do they follow a sense of continuity, or are they self-contained chapters that can be read independently?
So yeah, the chapters are sequenced in a logical way, so that one chapter naturally leads to the next chapter. And this is because big picture ideas in one branch of analytics have often led to those in another branch. At the same time, I wrote the book so that if people are interested in the main ideas only in one particular branch, say for instance, AI or machine learning or data analysis, including subjects like causal inference and things like that, they can read those specific chapters easily and independently.
Okay. Writing about topics like linear programming without actually showing a linear program is very challenging.
Yeah.
But I think you succeeded in doing so. The term linear program might not be very clear at first, and you even discussed the story behind the terminology in your book. However, do you think it's still worth using the term linear programming for historical reasons, or would a term like linear optimization be more meaningful at this stage?
Yeah, that's a good question. So in the book, as you say, I describe the history and reasons behind names. Why do we, for instance, have terms like linear programming or non-linear programming, for instance? Why was the term programming itself chosen, despite the fact that it does not refer to the typical meaning of programming? Like, when we think about programming, we think of writing a bunch of codes, but that's not what linear programs or nonlinear programs essentially refer to. But similarly, like you can say, why do we have the term like artificial intelligence, and who came up with that name? Why do we call a branch of machine learning supervised learning and another branch unsupervised learning? What about reinforcement learning? So these are the things that I clarify in the book, where the name is coming from, why is it chosen that way, who chose that name, and things like that. But while I want the reader to understand this, it's more important to grasp the ideas behind these branches. So names are not that important for me. You can call things the way you want them, as long as you know the main and big picture ideas. I think you can use them, and you can have an impact. Conversely, I see a lot of people, unfortunately, use the correct terms, but do not know the main ideas behind, behind the terms that they are using.
Yeah, so you're actually more interested in the meaning rather in the name itself.
Yeah.
Okay. In your book, you'll talk about generative AI, large language models, and ChatGPT, and explain how they are fundamentally rooted in deep learning and transformers. But I would like to hear your thoughts on their broader impact on the field of analytics.
Yeah, so as you say, transformers, large language models are impacting various fields. In my lab, my own lab, for instance, we've been running a large number of experiments to see if they have the ability to make, for instance, sequential decisions, whether they understand causation, and others have been using them for running linear programs and see if they can optimize nonlinear programs and things like that. One thing that I emphasize throughout the book is the fact that, well, scaffolding practice has shaped the science of analytics, as I mentioned earlier, and its impact for solving societal problems. We essentially build upon previous tools and ideas. So I'm excited to see how the next generation of analytics scientists will make use of the tools and ideas of our era, including AI and large language models that are vastly available right now, to advance this science further and essentially creates more impact moving forward.
Okay. Do you have plans to write a follow-up to this book, perhaps diving more into the technical aspects of analytics?
Yeah, well, if I find the bandwidth, I might. I do, however, believe that impact comes from ideas, not from the technical details. Don't get me wrong. I mean, technical details are very important, but without knowing the main ideas clearly and fully, the technical details will result in, what Samuel Johnson called it, knowledge that will make no man wise. He said, as gold which he cannot spend will make no man rich, so knowledge which he cannot apply will make no man wise. I'm hopeful that my book, by describing things in non-technical terms, will influence people and will make them actually wiser. So my goal has been to give people not what Samuel Johnson called knowledge that will make no man wise.
All right, Soroush, it's been wonderful talking to you again. I wish you all the best with your book. It's a fantastic book, I can confirm, and maybe looking forward to the next one.
Thank you so much. Thanks again for having me.
Yeah. Okay, take care. Bye.
Thanks.
Ciao.
Thanks.